All right, so today I'm excited to give the training on ADUs. ADUs were passed into a new bill passed by Gavin Newsom in the beginning of 2020, and since then they've become one of the best ways to create cash flow for real estate investors. If you have a real estate investor in your portfolio and they're not currently doing ADUs, they're missing one of the biggest opportunities in the real estate market at the current moment, and they need to get on it immediately. We have the bill that got passed into legislation was a 5-year test trial. So we basically have this 5 years to create as many ADUs as we can, and then we don't know what will happen after 2025. So it's really important to get on them fast because we could completely get rid of them. The point of the ADUs though is to create more supply of housing. We know that we have a serious supply problem of housing in the state of California, and by allowing more units to be built, it is increasing the supply, which should lower some prices, but since demand is so high, it probably will just mostly offset them. So what is an ADU? An ADU stands for an accessory dwelling unit. Like I said, this bill was passed in 2020 by Gavin Newsom to increase the supply of housing. So the big difference between what we have as an ADU and what we're used to as guest houses is what we normally think of when we think of a second dwelling at a house. A guest house is not legally allowed to be rented separately from the main house. So an accessory dwelling unit, what it essentially does is it overrides the existing zoning for the property, and by overriding the zoning, it allows you to then have more than one rental dwelling unit on the property. So if you have a single family home, you now can have up to 3 units on it, and 2 of them can be rentals if you're owner occupying one of them. And if you're in a multifamily, you can add ADUs per every 4 units. The different types of ADUs are first a detached ADU. Then you have an attached ADU, which is usually like when you have in a garage that's attached to the house that's converted. And then last is a junior ADU. So junior ADUs are junior to the senior ADU. And if you do have a junior ADU, it has to be converted from existing space, and the property has to be owner occupied. So you can effectively make your house a triplex, but you have to live in one of those 3 units. But if you are not going to be owner occupied, then if you have a single family home, then you just be looking at one ADU, and that could be either attached or detached space. And if you are going to be doing junior ADU, it just has to be converted from an existing space. You can't build it brand new. Okay, so one of the biggest questions you guys will get in the field when you're out looking at properties is what's your limitations on size? So with all of this information I'm going to give you today on ADUs, you're not going to expect to know all of it like right off the cuff with your client, because some of it's really complicated, some of it's really detailed and complex and hard to memorize. But one thing that they always are going to want to know is how big of an ADU can I do? So if there's an existing garage space, like I put here, this is 335 Soledad, a property that we have listed on the market, 8-unit complex with 8 garage units would be perfect, or plans are already drawn for conversion of 2 ADUs. So if you have a situation like this, you have enough garage space to convert them into bigger ADUs, right? But normally when we're talking about ADUs, it's at a single family home. So you have like a 2-car garage, and those are usually 20 by 25 about, so you're looking at around 500 square feet. So those are kind of appropriate for your junior ADUs. But if you're gonna be building brand new, then your builder is always gonna know, how big can I go? So you can go a 2-bedroom with 1,000 square feet, and you can't technically put in a 3rd bedroom, but you can put in an office. So your 3rd bedroom just can't have a closet in it. And when you draw your plans, it just has to say office on the label as opposed to bedroom. So it's a technicality. The use will still be a 3-bedroom. When the investor goes to rent it, they'll still call it a 3-bedroom, but on the plans that are submitted to the city, it'll be called a 2-bedroom plus an office. And then your minimum ADU size is something that'll come up when you have these little tiny 1-car garages, is 150 square feet. I've seen them that small. They totally work. Definitely tell your clients to do them. Junior ADU.
So how big is Amador, would you say?
I would guess 150.
200,
like 200, 150 to 200 for sure.
So a junior ADU, 500 square feet. So like when we've talked about doing these in the past, where's it owner occupied though?
Here's the thing with the junior ADU. It's per how they regulate whether you're living in their owner occupied, is they have you sign a certification saying that basically it's an affidavit saying that you're going to occupy it. So whether or not you actually do it, that's up to you, but you do have to sign an affidavit with the city stating that you're going to live there.
You could have plans change later, life plans or something.
I think there's like year limitations and stuff like that. So it's just somebody's comfort level. Most investors aren't going to be able to get away with though if they say like, oh yeah, I'm going to live on this property on this street that the city knows that they're not going to live on because their mailing address is on the beach in Del Monte Beach. They're going to be like, hey, why are you moving from Del Monte Beach to Seaside. Yeah, like this is a little weird. So, like, so most people aren't going to be able to hit that loophole. But if you have like a brand new investor who's wanting to house hack, that's a great way to do it. And I'm going to talk about that in my slides too. All right, so the other really, really big question you'll get is on setbacks. Now, setbacks are mostly city to city, but there's a couple rules that stay true between the different cities. And also it's important for me to note actually that I should have said this earlier is there's a California state laws on ADUs and cities are not allowed to restrict them further than the state laws. So cities can put in technicalities that the state doesn't cover, but if the state states you need a 4-foot setback on the back end, the city can't go in and change that to 5 feet. It's the state law. They cannot amend it, but they can add things that aren't included. So this is what your investor is going to ask you a lot about. So this project is 1268 Prospect. It's one of our investors purchased it last year. It was complete tear down. He's actually in the process of tearing it down right now because we just got these plans approved with the city. So he's going to be building a primary dwelling unit 2-story with the garage on the bottom. And so it's going to be kind of a reverse floor plan. But what I want to show you here in the back is for the setbacks. So you will be required to know or your investors will want you to know what kind of setbacks they're going to have because they want to know, hey, is this space big enough for me to actually build something here, right? So what you need to have is a 4-foot setback on both the rear and side property lines for the property. And then every city is going to be different for the front. What I see mostly is either between 15 and 25. The city of Seaside is 15. I think PG's 20. But all you need to do to figure out what their front yard setback is just Google Planning Department City. So Planning Department Pacific Grove. One of the first pages that'll come up should be their Planning Department website. If you go on there, they always have the planner's contact information. And most cities have like 3 or 4 planners. Email all 4 of them on one email. Whoever responds to you is your new contact. Also, if you're not getting a response, ask me who I usually communicate with because I usually do have a person who I've like picked to be my favorite at each city. And I usually just go based off of who responds the fastest because I need the information quick. And if I don't get it quickly, I'll forget about it. So 4-foot setbacks, back and rear. And then if there's another dwelling that you're going to be close to, there is a setback requirement, but what's typical is 10 feet, and that's per city. So what I've seen usually is 10 feet, but like Monterey has a little bit smaller, but the city of Seaside requested specifically 10 feet because they needed that.
Between the two?
Between the two, yeah. You can do less, but the cities might request it, and then if they request stuff, they just get like easier with you on what you're doing.
That's a fair average.
Yeah. It's just like you kind of want 10 feet because if you don't, there's like not much room to walk and people feel like they're on top of each other. And this is strictly for new builds. So if you have an existing garage that's already built directly on the property line, it can still be converted to a ADU. You just have to put in a 1-hour fire rated wall. So it's just a special shear wall that they put in that is more resistant to fire. And so like 464 Cortez, we had a garage that was directly on the property line. We just needed the neighbor's permission to be able to go into their yard when we were doing the work on the ADU because you have to be able to access it. But as long as you have neighbor permission, then you're able to build it directly on the setback if it's a conversion. So we've done that in Seaside, we've done that in Monterey. So all cities, it's actually a state level law for that. So, all right, so now why to build an ADU? So I kind of left you guys all little pads of paper because I wanted to go through just a quick little math exercise for you. I know this is gonna be a little complex, but I'm just trying to get you guys to understand the message behind it, so don't get too stuck on the math. So, so if you have a single family home, let's say it's a single family home in Seaside, and it's being listed for $700,000 and it's gonna rent for $3,300. So at the top of your page, write 700,000 and then write 3,300. Okay, so now under your 3,300, write PITI 3931. Does everybody here know what PITI stands for? Principal, interest, taxes, insurance. It's really important for you to know that abbreviation when you're working with investors. It's what they care by far the most about because it's by far their largest expense at a rental property. It's also what makes real estate, in my opinion, the best asset class to invest in because you're able to leverage up your investment with 20% down and purchase something with 5 times the amount of leverage in the cash that you have. And so for this particular property, the PITI is going to, at 20% down, will be $3,931. So you write that right underneath your 300. So this investor has $140K cash invested in the property. So if you take that $3,300, subtract that $3,931, you see you get negative $631. That is this investor's cash flow before management, repairs, utilities, and capital expenditures. Who wants to make this investment? Nobody, right? Sounds like a pretty terrible investment. You're buying something at a high price and you're going to be negative $600 per year, negative $7,500, or excuse me, $6,300 per month, negative $7,500 per year. Plus repairs, utilities, CapEx, and vacancy, you can estimate at about 10% of your rental value. So it's probably another $70 per month in negative cash flow on those things. If they hire a manager, about another $150. So they're losing a lot of money on this property basically. Horrible investment. But if you take the same investment and you use the cheat code of ADUs, then you take a $700K investment and you increase your rent to $5,100. Now I got to that by, when you do an ADU, your main house does lose a little bit of value usually. And that's because your lot, they no longer have that huge lot that they're on by themselves, or even if it's a small lot, now it's gonna feel cramped. They no longer have, now they might have shared walls, now they might have less yard space, now they might split some utilities. So that main house has become a little bit less valuable. So I said that this would decrease this rent to $3,100, but you're gonna get now that extra $2,000 for this ADU you just built. So now your gross rents are at $5,100. So now if you write that $5,100 again down and write underneath it $3,931, because your PITI doesn't change for ADUs. And that's why this is such a huge cheat code, because you're utilizing your biggest expense and you're leveraging it up to create more gross income. So now if you do that $5,100 minus $3,931, you'll get $1,169, positive $1,169 per month before all those repairs. And then you have more cash invested now, but you have a significantly better cash on cash return. So the concept behind this is that PITI is our largest expense and we need to leverage it as much as possible. And by leveraging it as much as possible, we can maximize our cash flow. So our keywords here are cash flow is king, PITI is your largest expense, and you want to leverage your expenses to increase your cash on cash return.
I got lost at PITI, and I'm sure no one else did, but just in case. So PITI at 20% down.
So this is a $700K purchase.
Yeah.
So if you have 20% down, you have $140K down.
Yeah.
So your remaining loan is $560,000.
Yeah.
So your principal, interest, taxes, and insurance for a $560K loan is estimated at $3,931 per month. To do that math, Zillow Mortgage has a great app.
Okay.
Just download the Zillow Mortgage app. It'll pop this out for you. There's a lot of great tools out there. You don't have to know how to do this. Yeah. Don't try to do that math. You have to use an amortization schedule, all this stuff. It's a complicated formula. You'll see the old school guys pull out their little book and they'll be like, well, I'll tell you what it is. And you're like, hey, Mark, I have it on my phone already. You can put your book away.
So $3,931, we're negative, and then $5,100 minus $3,931.
Yeah. And so the big point here is that this number didn't change on this investment. The only thing that changed was your cash invested, but for an extra $100,000, you go from negative cash flow, which is something you should never do, to positive almost $1,200 per month. So that's about $15,000 per year. So $15,000 divided by that 100,000 aggregate, the difference. So you added about 15% cash on cash return. Well, actually more because it's differential.
$1,800 a month swing.
Exactly. Yeah. And so you usually see with these is that you see about a 18 to 22% cash on cash return increase from adding the ADUs. So that's your increasement, the amount you increase it. So it's like a no-brainer if you have the ability to do it, basically. 18 to 22% cash on cash return is unreal. Yeah.
That will also give you some forced appreciation, right?
It'll also give you some forced appreciation. Now, one of the kind of caveats though about the forced appreciation is there hasn't been a ton of sales of properties with ADUs, so there's not a ton of sales data for them to compare it to. So I've done a few refinances on ADUs, and the appraiser will come out and they'll be like, this property's awesome, but I have nothing to comp it to because it's not a duplex and it's not a single family home, but it's closest to a single family home. So I'm gonna get it pretty close to that and probably just add construction value for that. And they don't give you the full construction value of what it cost you. They give you a construction value of like an improvement. It's like, it's stupid.
No, they don't consider it a duplex. Why? Because it doesn't have its own address or something? Or?
Yeah, so it's not, so because this law is only in existence for 5 years, it could get taken away. So in 2026, it's a possibility that they could say, you can't rent this separate anymore. It's now a guest house.
Oh, I didn't know they were gonna I thought you would be solid if you bought it in that.
There's nothing in the bill that currently does that, but think about it this, if they do that, what they just did was they artificially increased the housing supply making people think that they can live here, and so they increase population. And then if they within 5 years took that away, then what do you think would go to the prices? What happened with prices? They would skyrocket. They would like exponentially shoot up. It would be catastrophic for the debt. So the chances of them taking it away, I'd say, are close to zero. But I'd say the ability for them to allow us to continue to build them is a good chance of not being allowed anymore. And they'll probably stop it for a couple of years and let us do it for a couple of years and stop it again. Like that's probably what will happen.
But so I'm just wrapping my head. It's like, so someone who's going to make an investment at $700K, and then we're going to push this like ADU pay to them. They would have to be investors because they would need to have 240 cash. Not necessarily cash right now though. They could start with that 140, but knowing that over the next year they should then save up. I'm thinking like a Deborah, as someone who wants to be an investor.
They absolutely need to think.
100K over the
They absolutely need to think about it ahead of time of how they're going to pay for the ADU, and if they don't have the ability to pay for the ADU, then they shouldn't consider it within the formula when they're trying to evaluate if this is a good property for them. It's just as simple as that, really. Or you can buy a fixer and refinance it and get the cash out. So that's kind of what I'm talking about here. So if you have somebody who already owns a home, so what we want to do as real estate agents is we always want to be providing our clients value. And so if our clients make more money, then their ability to buy more properties increases, and also their personal homes that they live in, they're probably going to want to live in nicer houses too. And we personally have seen this happen over and over again with our investors, where they've done a couple ADUs, they bought more of them because they love doing it, and then they moved into a fancier house because now they're making the double the cash flow they were before. So if someone's owned a single family home for 5 years and they bought it with $400K in debt, so the purchase price doesn't matter, it's just the debt matters, the $400K, and it's going to rent for $3,300, they can do a cash out refinance to get that money to do the ADU. So they don't have to have that cash saved. They have that money sitting in the equity of their home. And there's loans that are specific to ADUs. Like you can go to Union Bank. There's a couple other small local banks you can go to. They'll give you loans specifically to do ADUs based upon your property's current value and what it'll be worth estimated after it's done. But those loans are typically a little bit higher on your rates. It's better if you can just go to a conventional lender and get it through them. But if for some reason somebody has too many conventional loans, or they have poor credit, or they don't want to lose, well, no, that wouldn't work. So if there just might be some reasons why they might want to go directly to an ADU company, or they might not have quite enough equity, and so they want to get the differential that one of those specialty banks will give them. So they're going to take this money now. So their original PITI was $29.77. So they were making a small amount of money before taxes. Before maintenance and all that good stuff. Their PITI would increase from $2,977 to $3,677. So they added $700 in PITI. Only $700, but now their rental rates are going to raise to $5,100. So they had a net effect of $1,800 plus on rent and negative $700. So now they're up $1,100 on this move. So for anybody who owns a home that has ADU potential, this is a great move for them as well. And it's still our job to provide tremendous value to our clients to help them increase their net worth and build generational wealth. And if you do that for your clients, they will refer you over and over and over again. And again, my points are PITI is our largest expense of leverage, and that's what we're doing here, and we're creating more cash flow, and because cash flow is king. Last is a house hack. So if you have somebody who's like a maybe younger generation person, or someone who's wanting to get started in real estate investing, this is the absolute best way to do it. You do live in one and rent the other, and then you can even add a junior ADU, so you can have a third unit since you're going to be living there. You can use this rental income from the ADU to subsidize your mortgage. If you're really a house hacker, you could live in the junior ADU and subsidize the other two ones and probably make money off your mortgage. Now, of course, the challenge of this is that you do have to have the cash to be able to build those units. But the nice thing is that you can purchase these properties with as low as 3% down with an FHA loan, or if it's a veteran, if you're working with somebody who is either active military or former military, they can buy with no money down. So in these two scenarios, if you have maybe $100,000, $200,000 saved up, you can save the money on your down payment and just use it all on your ADU. This is the absolute best way for a young person to get started in real estate investing. They can go buy a house in Marina or Seaside on a big lot, do one of the ADUs first, wait a little bit of time after they've collected some cash flow, and do a second one. They will be set for life if they do this when they're young. They'll be set for life if they do this in their mid to early 20s, because compound interest will start to take effect, and through time, the value of this asset will just become enormous, and eventually they will pay down that debt, or at some point they may choose to refinance it and take that money and go put it into another property and do it all over again. This is the best thing for young people to do. If you have a young person who's interested in investing, tell them to house hack now. All right, multifamilies, we don't run into this as much, so I won't spend as much time on it, but you are permitted 1 ADU for every unit, 4 units on the property. For this formula, it always has to be converted from existing space. So the best example for this is 3270 Del Monte. It's a 112 unit complex, which is huge, right? And so we got really excited when we first started looking at it because we're like, wow, we're gonna be able to build 28 ADUs over there. This is insane. There's a huge parking lot. We're just gonna build a whole nother complex right here. So it wasn't as easy as we thought. It turned out that for that formula, for specific formula, there has to be existing space that you're converting. So laundry rooms, a manager office units, a structure, like an existing structure. And if it's a garage, it has to be attached to your main structure. And so what they'll define as your main structure is probably just whatever has the most gross living space.
So is this for all multifamilies, or is this just like for that big commercial?
Every multifamily. So if it's 16 units, you can build 4. If it's 112, you can build 28.
But it has to be existing.
Existing space to convert it, yeah. So it's best if you have like attached garages. That's like gonna be the best scenario. Otherwise, you can get like a laundry room, like at 1191 Noche Buena, we're doing a manager's unit and a laundry room to do this. Now, in addition to this, you're also permitted 2 detached on any multifamily parcel. So when you're doing this, so like if you had a 16 unit, you could do 2 converted from existing space and 2 detached.
Okay.
And then the best part about this, and this is the one that you guys will use the most, is you're permitted 2 detached for any multifamily zone property, any one. So if it's a duplex, 2 detached ADUs is permitted. That's the best cheat code in this entire system. These may be attached, they can be a new construction or garage conversion. So if there's detached garages, you can convert them. We're doing that at 1191 Noche Buena and 3051 De La Vina. And if your garages are attached, you can do that. If you want to attach them to the building because that's the way your lot's laid out and how you need to do your setbacks, you can do that too. It's just the fact that 2 of them, you kind of have like a free reign on the first 2 ADUs, and the remainder of them have to be conversions essentially.
Permitted, so 1 ADU per 4 units must be converted though, existing space.
To use that formula,
To
yes.
use that formula, but then permitted, 2 detached is the cheat code for any. So what is that street? What is all the little houses, the different paint colors?
Wanda.
Wanda. So
Yeah.
what Wanda was, you added?
So Wanda, right now, we're adding 2 ADUs because of the law that we can add 2 detached. And then that one is actually getting, Seaside and Marina are both currently going through what's called a zone up, where they changed the zoning to allow for more units per dwelling acre. And so that's just another thing that they're putting in to increase the supply of housing. So at 1082 Wanda, when that zone up happens, it'll be allowed, right now it's only allowed 5, or it's actually allowed 6 dwelling units. And then once the zone up happens, it'll be allowed 8 dwelling units because you're allowed to have more units per acre. And that is beside the ADU law. So that's gonna happen. So we're doing that at 225 Mortimer in Marina as well. Marina's gonna have a zone up by mid 2023. We have a massive, like 1 or 2 acre lot that we're gonna build an apartment complex on.
How many units was on Wanda when you started?
5.
5, and you've added?
Adding 2, and then I'll add another 3 later.
So is it like kind of one or the other? Because I guess I'm a little confused. Is it like 1 for every 4 units, or you can just do 2 detached on it?
To start, yeah, so I just explained it in the reverse order that made it confusing. So start with when you have a multifamily, no matter what, I can do 2 wherever I want them.
Okay.
And then if I have more than 4 units, and then if I have more than, I guess you'd say 12 units, because that would be when you start to get 3. So once I have more than 12 units, or 12 or more, should I say, once I hit that 12 number, then I can add 1 that's converting existing space. And then when I hit 16, I can add another that's converting space. When I get to 20, I can add another.
Okay.
But then that's when you kind of start to lose space to convert too.
Yeah.
So that's when it gets tough. So like 16 is what I found to be kind of the sweet spot, those buildings that are around 16, because you can usually do 2 detached and then find 2 places to convert. And then on the ones that I've tried to do that are 20 plus, we've just ran into complications and we've ended up back at like 2.
Let me throw a hypothetical here. So
Yep.
say you start with the 2 detached, right?
Uh-huh.
You build them like above some garage space.
Yeah.
Can eventually you convert one of those garage spaces to an ADU?
Depends. Okay, so there's 2 answers. One is it's going to be per city on whether they allow you to build them above. So there is a code in the California state law that they can only be a maximum of 16 feet high, but they don't specify whether that means they're second story or not. So some cities have adopted that means that they can't build on top of garages, and cities have said, oh, that only applies if it's a single story. You just can't build a single story that's more than 16. So they've left that up into interpretation, like they messed up on that one.
Okay. Do they have any like ADA laws too? Like
There are ADA laws once you get, we had this at 780 Amador. So once you have 4 ground, I think it's on your 4th unit that's a ground level unit, your 4th unit has to be ADA compliant, is what I believe it is. But
Okay.
I would double check that because that's from memory of like over 2 years ago.
Okay.
So yeah, you do start getting into that, and those are like separate ADA laws that have like their own things for like if you're building your own apartment complex and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's when that'll come into play.
Okay.
So like 1082 Wanda, those are all single level we have to do those ADA compliant. But it's really not that, like you just have to have,
So they can get in.
yeah, and then your bathroom just has to have like a small lip and it has to have a bar. Like it's not that, your sink can only be so high. It's not that crazy what you have to do.
Yeah.
It's not really, it's not like how commercial buildings are like really crazy. All right, so now I'm gonna go through good, better, best on the types of ADUs. So I mentioned these before. So good would be building a brand new ADU on an oversized lot. So if you have like a big 10,000 square foot lot with a single family home in front, you can go build a big ADU in the back. And we saw earlier, if it's a 2-bedroom up to 1,000 square feet, and if it's a 1-bedroom up to 850 square feet. Construction costs on these is about $350 per square foot. And the reason why the cost gets so high is because you're pouring a brand new foundation, you're having to build all new framing for your entire structure, you're having to add a roof with all the engineering that requires. The best part about these though is it's your highest new rental value because people mostly want to live in brand new units, right? And here on the peninsula, we specifically have hardly any brand new construction, so people are really excited when they do get to live in it. Especially people who are used to moving from like Oklahoma or Virginia where it's like only new construction. They're all like baffled by our 1940s, 1950 construction. Number 2, which is better than the new build, is converting a attached garage. And the reason why this is better is because the cost is significantly less. You already have an existing foundation that you're going to be building upon. You already have existing framing for the house, and you already have a roof that's already had all the engineering done and the roof put in. But the kind of flip side of this is that it is going to have your lowest rental value because you're going to have a shared wall. And it's also most likely going to have the least amount of privacy for the different types of ADUs. For our local market, privacy is the most important factor for your rental rate. If it feels like community living, people are going to pay community type living rates. If it feels like a single family home, it feels individual, people are going to pay single family home rates, which are your highest rates. It's not a big city, right? So if you're in San Francisco or Oakland or something like that, they're used to having more community type living. Where here it's like, yeah, we have some areas that have smaller lots, but those are like unique buyers that usually want those, usually second home people. People who live full time don't usually want that.
Can I see the previous slide for 1 second?
Yes. Since I went back, I'll just make another mention. This construction cost is based upon rental grade finishes. It will go up if they do more, and it will go up if they do it like, in the coastal zone of Pacific Grove or something like that. Like, so if there's different factors, you can do 700 square foot cost per dollar per square foot build, no problem.
That's the floor though.
But this is the floor. Like if you're doing this for an investor who wants just to maximize cash flow, this is what they expect. If you have somebody who's building for grandma to live in their backyard, they're probably going to want to run it at like $500 per square foot. Huh?
And then when you get into like primary residence, that's when you get into like 7 and 9 and up.
Yeah. If you get somebody who's like, I want to build a compound in Pebble
Yeah.
Beach, they could be looking at anywhere from 700, 900. Yeah. So that was specifically for people who are using this for cash flow purposes. I don't think you're going to see a lot of people who want to buy a big home and build a big ADU on it. Like, I don't think you're going to run into a ton of people like that. People who are building a new home to begin with might want to build an ADU also there, like a project listing that Kevin has coming up next year. He's building a big old 5,000 square foot house, and he's also putting a big old ADU on the property because if you're already building, you might as well maximize the value if you have the space.
And every preserve lot will do that.
Yeah, exactly. You'll see it on most preserve lots. Yeah.
Question, because I know it's like the ADU limit is 1,000 square feet, right? But if you just wanted to build a second home on your lot, you could, right? But you're not allowed to rent it out.
Not really separate, yeah. And then there's still gonna be limitations on that too. I don't know those offhand, but
Yeah,
check with your planning department. Yeah, yeah. But people like to do the ADU because then you could use it as, you can always use it as rental income. Always when you give people the most options is when they'll pay the most money. They can choose their adventure with it, and then at any point in time, they know that they can change their adventure. And then it has the most marketability because it'll have the most people who are available to want that same thing.
Gotcha.
So it's kind of like economic supply and demand. So we went through this one. Okay, and then the absolute best, the one that I always personally look for whenever I'm looking to invest in ADU, is a detached 2-car garage. If you have an existing detached 2-car garage, your construction cost is going to be about $140,000. Now that's going to really differ based upon the size and the distance from the house and the age of the things that are in the ADU. I've seen them go as low as $80,000 on these builds, but I've seen them go as high as $175,000. Kind of an average I've seen is like that $120,000 to $140,000 range. The reason why it's so much less than building new is because, again, we're utilizing that same existing foundation. We have existing framing, and we've already done the engineering for the roof. This is by far our best ratio of income to expenses of a cost of what it costs to build it, by far. You always have a great amount of privacy when these happen. The house itself feels really big and spacious. It just, the whole thing feels the best.
So it's like the previous one, kind of like, just like say if these are all in Seaside, more like a $1,600 to $800 or $1,800 a month rental. This is closer to 22-ish or 2,000.
If you're doing 1 bedrooms, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
But you can put 2 bedrooms in it. 2 cars.
Oh yeah, you do, yeah. So like the one we're doing at Mortimer will probably be we're gonna do 2 bedrooms plus an office. It's probably gonna be like a $3,300 rental. All right, so now what your client should expect on terms of timeline. And so this is good for you to know. You don't have to know every single little detail, but it's good for you to know generally what they're looking at. It's like what they're getting themselves into. So I typically tell people if you respond to the city within a reasonable amount of time when they're sending you for corrections, and if you respond to your architect within a reasonable amount of time, you should expect to take 10 months from the time that you decide to start your ADU, like to actually take action, to the time that it's gonna get rented, 10 months. So that'd be like your quickest, basically. I wouldn't expect anybody to do it quicker than 10 months. I've seen people do it quicker than 10 months by like a couple weeks, not by much more than that. It just takes time to work with the cities, to do the corrections they want, to get your contractor started, to finish it, to get it finalized, get the people moved in. It just all takes time. So the first step is you decide to build, you secure your financing. We talked about the financing earlier. And then you also should talk to your planning department about the feasibility. If you hire a company like Housable, who's experienced with ADUs, they will talk to the city for you as well. Next step is to engage an architect, and I even put in here engage Housable to draw plans for permits and specifications for the building. Housable is the company that we have used throughout this time. They're based out of San Francisco. They don't have to ever come on site. They're really easy to work with, and they're really affordable. They typically do the plans for about 1/3 the cost of somebody who's local. If you have somebody who wants something like really specific or grand or something like that, I definitely recommend using a local person, because Housable is not local. They won't know the local intricate laws. They'll know the basic laws. Then you get your plans drawn and you work with the city to get them approved. Some cities are really challenging to get them approved with, like Monterey. It's a nightmare. You'll do at least 10 submissions, make you change every little technicality. Where the city of Seaside approves them now, usually on the first attempt, because they've just done so many of them. So what I've seen is like the difference of how easy it goes is how many they've done. Like Delray Oaks hasn't done a single one, and we're trying to do one there right now. And they've never done a single ADU. They only have 1 multifamily property in the whole area, and so they're requiring a site inspection before they'll even review the plans because they've never done one. But where the city of Seaside, we've personally pumped them through the city of Seaside, so they're trained on it. They know, and plus Housable already knows what Seaside's going to complain about. It's like it's just like a done process every time. But Delray Oaks, they're like, we're going to be involved in every single step of this process with you guys.
It's crazy.
Just getting started.
Yeah.
What is kind of the average cost if you say you use Housable to do your plans and everything?
I want to say $3,500 is what they charge. Yeah.
And it's usually like 3 times as much if you get a local person?
At least.
Oh, wow.
There also will be things that come up, like if there's engineering required, like Watsonville has a lot of flood areas. They'll require a lot of they'll require soil reports and stuff like that. So there's different complications that can occur based upon the hazard zones that it's in.
Valley, they would probably require the for the water to flow through.
Right. Yeah. So there's going to be some things that you run into, but This would be like a more basic one, a more basic approach, basically. And then you build your ADU, collect your cash flow. So it's a great timeline. All right, so I mentioned Housable, housable.com. You guys can sign into my account at any time too. I'll show you guys that at the very end. And you can kind of look at some of the projects we've done, and you can look at the notes to kind of get, if you want to like really dive in deep and educate yourself more, I'll give you guys that resource to be able to log into. And then also you can reach out to Housable to get more information, or if you have a specific project, they usually will help a little bit. They're changing their format to try to work only with professionals and investors, so that's good for agents too, because they just basically want to work with people who understand things when they tell them to them. They don't like working with the individual homeowners who like keep changing their mind what they want every 2 weeks, because then they have to like, the project never gets built and the homeowner complains. And then, so challenges that we're going to run into. So number one is water credits. We did the water credit training about a month ago. This is going to be by far your biggest limitation. If you have a 3-bedroom, 1-bath home without a laundry sink in an area that you can't buy water credits for, you will not be able to build an ADU there.
The city of Pacific Grove,
You can do some reworking, right? If you have some really like high flow toilets and stuff, right?
so toilets will be able to get 1 credit per toilet for reallocation. But if you only have 1 bathroom, you basically need a laundry sink or you won't be able to do it. The minimum amount of credits needed to build an ADU is 5.3. So you kind of add that up. If there's 3 toilets, you get 3 credits there. You get laundry, another 2, then you get instant hot water and 5 credits. So if you pull out your water credit calculator that we did, and just punch it in there, and then just run the math real fast. The laundry sink is like what I usually like to find in there, because those are 2 free credits. Am I good?
Yeah, it says the internal temp is too high.
Oh.
Or you find a place that was sold last before 1978.
Where you find a place and then you add a laundry sink. Exactly. All right, so that's where the monitoring comes in. Let's specifically what the problem is. The second challenge is really spaces to build. So that's when we look at those setbacks.
So if you have somebody who's going to build a brand new construction one, they're going to need to have 4 feet on each side at the rear and back. And then if they want to build in the front yard, cities don't typically like that. They don't want to be built in the front yard, they want it to be built in the back. So you can do it in the front yard, but they're going to be really tight on those setbacks for the front yard. And like I said, every city is slightly different, but about 15 to 25 is the general rule of thumb. Impact on tenants. So if it's currently rented, you're going to be doing construction with tenants living there. That's a huge problem. It's good to talk to your investors about not having their tenants live there during it. It's of course up to them. It's also good if you just maybe negotiate a deal with the tenants, like give them a little discount, and then that way they continue to live there and subsidize your construction costs, and that the tenants still feel good about it because they're paying less than they would have been paying if they were living in a home that didn't have didn't have a drill and a saw and all that stuff banging on every day. So if you do kind of a win-win situation, I've found that to be the best. And then utilities are the last challenge. So it's impossible to get a new water meter on the Monterey Peninsula, and it's very challenging to get a new gas meter, but electric meters are fairly simple to get. So what I've always recommended people is make the ADUs all electric, and that way you can get an individual meter just for the electric, and then you can do rubs for water. And then you just completely cut gas out of the equation. Melissa had a client, he works in the propane business, and so it was really tough for him to swallow that he shouldn't put any gas in his unit, but he eventually agreed because he's like, yeah, I don't want to have to pay for the electric and gas for my tenants.
So I'd rather.
Well, propane on this thing.
Yeah, it took him a few times.
Propane on it.
It took him a few times. It took him a few times to come around, but eventually when you realize, oh, I'm going to be paying like $400 per month, or I'm writing when you pay somebody's PG&E, you're writing like a blank check because it's so easy to rack up electric bills, and maybe like doing crypto stuff in there. And, oh yeah.
What is rubs?
Rubs, I do. What's rubs?
All right, rubs. I did a great training for rubs for CNC a couple weeks ago. I could, if it's something you guys want, well, it's so technical. It's a little technical, but you guys should watch that training. But basically what it is if you have 1 meter and multiple units on 1 meter, it's a formula for splitting utilities amongst the units, which is not like an even division between the units. It's based upon how many square feet they have, living square feet they have, and how many occupants are in the unit. So if you have like 1,000 square foot main house with 2 occupants and a 500 square foot ADU, then you have 1,500 total square feet. If you're occupying 5 of the 1,500, 500 of the 1,500, you'd be 1/3 of that, and that would be plus how many occupants you have compared to the total occupants. So it's just a more complex way to split the utilities between tenants and make it a little bit fair for them, basically.
Water and so just water and PG&E.
do your ADU all electric because then you can do
So
a
just
separate
water.
electric meter, yeah.
How do you do hot water with just electric?
They have electric heat pumps.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
okay, cool.
They also have electric, so you can do electric heaters, but what we've been doing is mini splits. So those mini splits they got really popular in Asia, and now they're getting popular here too. They're usually in warmer climate areas, so they're AC and heat. And they go they get mounted like up on the wall. You'll see if you see them mounted up on the wall, they're called a mini split. And if you go outside at the back, you'll see this like 3 foot high thing that kind of looks like an industrial box fan, and that's what's pumping in the heat and
Those things are pretty good.
yeah, they're pretty good. They're supposed to be expensive to service though, so I've put in several. So I'll let you know. I'll let you know in like 5 to 10 years when they start breaking. Hopefully they're like more common by then because they're not as common right now. So
Yeah.
you go to like a bigger city that's warm, they'll have a lot of vendors to service them. But like in our area, it's fine. It was kind of tough to find somebody at first who would even do them, and then once we found somebody, yeah. Okay, so our offer, so what you can tell our clients is that we will oversee plan and permit process for them if they use Better Homes and Gardens Real Estate as their broker, and they must have purchased the property with the company. We also can recommend contractors to them. So who we've been historically recommending for specifically ADUs is John Tarantino and Valverde. Jen has been making some really great contractor relationships recently, and I know they're going to be coming and presenting us in the next couple of weeks. So once that happens, we'll definitely be adding them to this list.
Based upon what I do know about them, I think they're going to be more of like the Carmel Pebble Beach guys, maybe not the Seaside Marina ones, but we still want ADUs in every city, not just only those rental ones. So people have different purposes. The main thing though to communicate is that we are not the general contractors. General contractors have a very specific service that they offer. They charge a percentage of the total amount of the construction, and they're the ones that hire to oversee the construction, not us. We don't oversee the contractors, but we can put them in contact with excellent contractors that we have great experience with.
This is a huge leverage benefit.
This is a huge benefit. No other brokerage in town will ever offer this. This is huge for any investor. You can go to the investor if you say you know they're working with Coldwell Banker down the street. You say, great, are they doing your ADU plans and permits for you? They're not. Do you want that done for you? They probably do.
Is that something that's like written into the offer, or it's just like something that
It's just offer.
verbally
Yeah, it's
commit
just
to?
verbally commit to. Yeah. Once the ADU is completed, we'll refer them to CNC Property Management to then get the ADU rented and create that cash flow for them. So we'll take them full circle. We'll get them involved in the process. We'll handle the plans and permits. We'll communicate with the city. We'll recommend a contractor for them to use. Once it's built, we'll refer them to CNC, and CNC will rent it for them. So the whole process can be handled for them with as much involvement as they want.
Whole
What's the
ecosystem.
stop?
At this point, because we started, when this law passed, it was like, Kevin and I heard the rule and we're like, this is a cheat code. Like this is unfair advantage in real estate investing. If we don't jump on this, someone else will. And like we want to be the forefront of it. We were, and now we've been doing it for 2.5 years and nobody can catch up at this point. So in conclusion, ADUs lead to increased cash flow, increase in property value. They also have a positive impact on the community because they're increasing our housing supply, which is huge for us. That's a huge value add to our community. And then it increases our management fees for CNC, but it also gives us more opportunity for brokerage. So this is so what it's doing is we're just seeing the huge revenue return for everybody who's involved. And then quickly, I just want to show you guys a couple of resources for hunting that you can utilize. So the first one is on MLS. When you're searching on MLS, you go to your search matrix, and if you go down to the bottom here on additional fields, you can add or remove fields to your MLS. So these are custom fields that are within here that you can create like really customized details of the property search. And so one of those things that you can add is garage spaces. If I want 2-car garages, I'll hit in a 2 here, and then if I want to see in Marina, and then if I only want to see the actives, I've now got 25 results in Marina of only houses that have 2-car garages. So they're all houses that I know have pretty good ADU opportunities. And now what I need to do is just kind of look through the pictures and see which ones are detached for me to find my best value. Also, when you're looking at like price points, you obviously are going to get your best. If you have somebody like really an investor, they're probably going to want to be like $950K or less. So I would maybe start there too. So it's like attached. I don't really love that
Are
one.
you like really doing ADU on that house?
You can, it's just,
It's hard to imagine.
you can, but your rental rate's just gonna be really low because you're on it, it's because it's not very private, it's right in the front area.
And that will no longer be a garage door.
It'll
right?
no longer be a garage door. It'll be really weird, yeah.
So you also have to watch out for HOAs, because they can. right?
No, HOAs cannot restrict it, not fully,
Because it's
not to the point in which you. So maybe I'll find one here, but I haven't found a good one yet. Okay, this one's a good one to show right here because look, it has a 2-car garage, so you have a main house with a 2-car garage attached, right? So a 2-car garage is usually about 500 square feet. Your allowed square footage for a junior ADU is 500 square feet. So you probably can do a junior ADU there. If you need to, you can splice a little bit out. And then if you see this backyard, we have a big backyard. So we could build a big one in the back and then we could convert that. Purchase price is $750 on this. You could probably do all that construction for around $300,000, $250,000, and then you have somebody who can house hack for $1 million, but they're going to be getting paid to live there then.
So the garage would be the junior, and then the thing that you build in the back would be like the main ADU.
Would be main ADU, and you could build it 1,000 square feet with 2 bedrooms and an office.
Yes,
Like,
you'll be printing money, exactly.
In terms of like technically speaking, if you don't live there, is the garage a junior use or just any, you can go.
So I've heard people describe that different ways. I personally always call it an ADU is if there's not. So I only call it a junior ADU if there's an existing ADU.
Got it.
So that is the way it's technically written, but like I've heard cities all the time where if it's attached, they'll say like, oh, you need a junior ADU. No, but by your definition, yeah.
I know you're gonna hate that I'm getting stuck on this, but so they do junior ADU that allows them less restrictions, right? Because it's, you can do it starting smaller, you can start junior ADU, because you have to have 850 to do a non-junior ADU or no? Don't think so.
Just a traditional ADU, if it's a 1-bed, it's up to 850 square feet, and it's 2-bed, it's 1,000 square
Got it, but if
feet.
you
Let
do
me just
like
get through this and the asset is different afterwards, because I want to finish my comment.
Okay.
All right, so the second resource is housable.com. My login is Kyle at CC River Pro 855 Pacific. These have amazing info. So if you like just have somebody who wants to build one in Marina, like go open one that's in Marina, because if you go on here, it'll give you all the information you need. Because Housable's already reached out to the city and talked to them about it. So if you click on property report, this is really cool. It'll show you like zoning, and then it'll also show you what your restrictions are and your requirements are for the different types. So if you're doing detached, you're allowed 1 per property. It can be up to 850 square feet for studio, 1-bedroom, 1,000 for 2. So like you can just take screenshots of this and start sending it to your client, and it already has all the info in this portal for each city.
Wow.
So definitely use this. It even gives you hazard information, development standards, all that great stuff. So it's really, really great. Also setbacks. So like for Marina, it's 20 feet. So that's the property report. And then if you look at feasibility will give the notes of when they talk to the city. So like who they talk to. So now you know who to talk to. And then it'll give you the questions that they're asking. So this kind of tells you what type of questions you should be asking. And then it's already telling you what your answers are too.
So this is a good resource if we just have questions just to go through.
If you have a client who wants to build a Marina ADU, go on Housable, go on my account, find one that's in Marina, start reading the notes and start just sending screenshots and copy and pasting text to your clients. Like you don't have to think or do anything, you just have to go into the portal and start sending it to them. It's all done for you
It's
already.
already been done.
Yeah. Because like when I go to do this, what I do too, like I don't have a stuff memorized, I just pull up my account and I start sending stuff from it all.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could go in, we could also go in there and like save it all to PDF and have for ourselves like a Marina folder and a CSET.
Exactly. That's even smarter. All right, so the last one is our website's actually great to find ADUs on as well. So you can set up a custom property search with 2-car garages through your Sierra. And if you're directly on the site, you can, if you want to send to look at it directly on your site, this is the search, advanced search. If you go down to garage space, you can then select garage spaces 1+, 2+, 3+. So let's say you want somebody who wants like a really big garage. You can do that. You can look at it in just only your selected cities. And Seaside has 4 3-car garages. So we're going to list our results. And so if you did that search through your Sierra CRM, because the search function is exactly the same, then you would get it here. And the data doesn't look great, but so we can control what other agents put in from their data. Like if they put incorrect data, they might have put, so what they probably did on these scenarios is they probably put parking spaces in the garage spaces. So we have a lot of older agents in our market, we have a lot of agents who aren't very good at technology. So a lot of times we get bad data, so that it's gonna happen.
Looks like going a lot of those had 3-car.
That is everything I have on ADUs.